We are back, and we do have another juicy game to look ahead to, this time in Tier 2.
Absolutely, yes. We have Canada versus the USA Eagles. It is a Rugby World Cup qualifier for 2023. It is the first of a two-legged affair. There's going to be a second leg next week in the States.
In Denver?
In Denver, indeed, in Colorado. But for this week, at least, we're in Swellers Rugby Park in St. John's, Newfoundland.
Yes,
Saturday,
famous ground.
Very famous ground, very small, intimate but loud ground. It's a very tough place to go and travel, so hopefully we'll have a 16th man there for the Canadians. It's going to be Saturday 4th of September, kickoff, that's 3 o'clock Canadian time.
So about 8 o'clock in Ireland and UK time, 9 o'clock South Africa time, and God knows when in Australia and New Zealand.
You can figure it out yourself if you're over in Tasmaniaville like that. But in the meantime, we have the referee is one Mike Adamson, who I know indeed. You're not a huge fan of. It's a Scottish ref. But beside him, we have an all-Canadian kind of officiating team of two assistants, Mo Chaudhry and Robin Kaluzniak, with TMO Chris Asmus of Canada in there as well. So 3 Canadians in there to help out Scott.
To tip the scales. It was actually it's next week's team is Mike Adamson and 3 Americans.
Yeah,
or 3 USA guys. So that's a funny old dynamic. But this series, obviously, just to recap on where things stand as far as World Cup qualifications. The series winner of this 2-match series, which will be done by aggregate score, the winner will be Rugby America's North number 1.
Yes.
Rugby,
or RAN 1.
Yeah, that's a bit of a mouthful. But that winner faces off against Uruguay, who've confirmed themselves as South America number 1.
Or SAR 1.
SAR 1, yes, indeed. And those two will play off then for the World Cup.
For America's 1.
America's 1 into the World Cup. Yeah. And so the loser of that game between the winner of these two and Uruguay will go into a separate playoff to be America's 2, which will feature them and the loser of this game, who will play off against Chile. And the winner of that fixture will then go and play the loser of the America's 1 fixture. So conceivably, let's just say you have the US win this game, face off against Uruguay, lose to Uruguay, Canada face off against Chile, beat Chile, then you have this game again to be America's 2, and then the loser of that game goes back and takes part in the repechage.
Yes.
So one of those 4 of Chile, Canada, USA and Uruguay will not be in the World Cup at all. They won't even go into the repechage. 1 will go into the repechage and 2 will qualify.
Yes.
And this is part of that series to decide it. It's the first part of North America's piece in it. South America has already resolved itself.
We were following a bit of South America's machinations as Uruguay were being quite impressive in getting themselves to that RAN number 1 spot. Whereas now, we have the North American clash, an old rivalry as Canada hosts the US Eagles. Just in terms of history, the two have actually faced each other 62 times overall.
It's a chunky amount for 2 Tier 2 teams, but they are neighbours.
They are neighbours. They do play annually, generally in normal times, even for quite a while. The edge goes to Canada historically. They have won 38 to the USA's 22, and there have only been 2 draws, one of which was a dismal sounding 3-all draw from 1982 in New York. That as I was reading up, I was like, my God, that must be a contender for one of the worst games of all time.
How do you know? Could have been a great old defensive battle.
Could have been a defensive masterclass from both, but I don't know if I believe it. Their first match between them was played in 1977 at Swangard Stadium in British Columbia, and Canada won that game 17-8, and then the USA won their very next game next year, the year after, 12-7, I believe. So it's been pretty tit for tat, but Canada have edged it historically. However, the more relevant record is the recent record, and in the last 6 years the USA have really been dominant here. They've won as many fixtures in a 6-year period as they did in the previous, I think, 27 years.
37
years even, going back as far as that opening game. So they've been more dominant. As we've kind of alluded to, Canada have maybe dropped off on the levels they've been at before.
Sure. Well, I was going to say, in terms of the benchmark for Canada, and as far as this is obviously the first step on their journey towards France 2023, wherever that journey ends, whether it ends in the competition or before then. But I mean, they have a very high stock as far as Rugby World Cups. They've competed in every single tournament since the inaugural one in 1987. They've never not made it. They, in fact, their peak was reaching the knockout stages, the quarterfinals in 1991.
So as far as we've ever made it.
Yeah, indeed. Canada, same achievement level as Ireland at the World Cups. They made it to a quarter-final.
Yeah.
It was a 29-13 defeat to the All Blacks.
It's not
entirely
not
creditable.
It's a better defeat than our most recent quarter-final defeat to the All Blacks.
No, indeed, yeah. So I mean, their stocks are pretty decent as far as historical pedigree is concerned.
Yeah.
But obviously, they just haven't. They are at the moment in some form of free fall, and will go into this series as firm underdogs
for sure.
As far as this week's game is concerned, though, I mean, St. John's does have this special a special place in Canadian hearts. It has a tough reputation as a tough place to go. That much is going to be interesting. The Canadians obviously have 12 Toronto Arrows in their squad.
Yeah.
Those guys have been off in the States all year playing MLR rugby. They haven't been able to play a game in Canada. So Canadian rugby fans, they've been starved of these kind of games, of any kind of games.
Yeah.
And so I'd say they'll be well hungry, they'll be loud. I'd say there'll be a lot of pride in terms of Canada. They'll know, this is a one-off. This is their chance to have a cut at the Americans at home. If they're going to win the series, they're going to need to win this game.
Yeah.
It gets very tough for them to qualify for the World Cup if they start losing games like these.
Truly.
So I mean, I think they'll be highly, highly motivated, and hopefully at the right pitch to have a cut at this game, and that is the Canadian hope.
And that is it, and winning this game is vital to their chances of getting further in the series. Obviously, you should say for both teams, as you were illustrating with the format, should they win this two-legged affair and go to face Uruguay, they're already guaranteed of at least the repechage.
That's right.
So it's really good, worthwhile, not just for the Americas one spot, but just in terms of securing your ability to go for it. Getting one foot in the door is very key for these teams, and it's the stuff you build on. You were alluding to 12 Toronto Arrows in the Canadian squad. Obviously, a massive contingent of MLR representatives in the US squad as well. It's very much off the back of a very successful MLR season in their third ever season, with a lot of attacking rugby displayed from many new clubs, many new contenders emerging this year, and many new players. You'd love to see some of that talent and some of that verve bleed into the national sides of both Canada and the US, if not this year immediately and this series, which I think, like the small hopes, you should see a bit of it in this series, but over the next 3, 5, 10 years, you're hoping to see massive growth through that.
Yeah, 100%. As far as the squads themselves are concerned, it is a game in which we have the actual squads, which is good to see.
Yeah.
The Eagles, just starting with them, curiously they've had... Sorry to take a sip in the middle of a point, but my throat's getting a little dry. They've had sips for suspense.
Yeah.
What have they had, Daragh? No, they've gone with a slightly different team than the one you would expect. They've gone with 3 hookers in the squad, which is weird. Taufatee appears to be covering prop on the bench. Big Joe Taufatee, which is a bit weird.
Is that speaking very highly of his scrummaging capabilities, or just dismissive of the Canadian scrummaging capabilities?
It's weird either way. The man is a hooker and has been a fulcrum part in their sort of maul axis. So I mean, to move him out of there seems a very curious one. They've done another couple of quirky things. They've got Will McGee in covering 10, or starting 10. I mean, they have plenty of options to choose from. Luke Cardy was the incumbent. They've moved him to fullback for the dual distributor idea. They've got Bracky, who was playing fullback in that summer series, back in at centre where he belongs. They've also got no Mikey Teo, obviously, with Luke Cardy at 15. Mikey Teo, the MLR Player of the Year, not involved. They've Baska, the scrummy.
Yeah, I'm disappointed to see that now. De Haas retains his 9 jersey despite being a fundamental problem for them over the summer.
So they got Opsberger covering on the bench.
Don't know him.
He's played a bit. Like he was once in the Sevens program. I know that much, and I think he's been around. I think he plays for one of the teams, San Diego, maybe.
Okay. So you're telling me he's not a 19-year-old?
No, he's been around for many years, so he's not a young lad. Right. And that has been a point of stall for them, is that they haven't been able to generate much tempo from 9
or accuracy of pass. That's been such a problem. Like the service has been poor, and Baskin, his one contribution that I can remember was grabbing a try against us in the summer. So I don't know. Indeed. So it's a somewhat experimental side. They have got Cruz on one wing, as they did have during the summer series. He's very lethal. They've brought in Christian Dyer. Still have guys like Cam Dolan in the attack, which is probably where this is going to be decided. Whatever about their hijinks out wide.
100%. They have got Christian Dyer has come in from the US Sevens team, and he's playing on the wing. Good to see some quick fellas out there as well. And as you alluded to, they have a big forward pack. They still have the likes of Gurmashis, the likes of Cam Dolan, though that's their money players. And Dylan Fawcett getting the start at hooker is no bad thing. He's a fine player as well. So that is definitely going to be where they're going to look to win the game. The line out mauls, the scrums, clear from that point of view that's their point of emphasis. But yes, Ed McGinty, the captain of the side, and obviously one of their stars, relegated to the bench, which is curious as well, given the fact that they have 2 10s on the starting team and a third on the bench. It's very distribution heavy. It might have something to do with the 50-22. Who knows?
We could see a bit of that impacted from both, especially with their pedigree from 5 out and their penchant for mauling and attacking from that set piece. Yeah, you could see them try and implement
something
that.
They should be doing anyway.
If they're tactically on the ball. As far as Canada are concerned as well, it's a similar enough side to what we expect, a similar enough side to what we saw over the summer as well. You still have Broad and Nelson at their halfback combination. You have some speed, guys like Lloyd and Webster out wide can grab tries. They need to be the more attacking side, so it's kind of nice to see a bit of speed, but it's really the tight that they have struggled to live with any of their opposition over the last number of years. It's been really 5+ years since I can remember them mixing it in the tight.
No, indeed, there's been nuggets of positivity in offense, but it is the same sort of stalwart heads in the pack as it has been. The likes of Connor Keys who can mix it at times, Andrew Quatrin at hooker coming in. There's some points of optimism.
He aptly named Lucas Rumble at 6. He needs to bring a bit of that rumble, because he's going to be facing Cam.
They are missing Tyler Argent. Who is such a quality player, is busy playing club footy, I believe, in France at the moment, somewhere anyway, which is keeping him from playing in this pivotal game, which is a little unfortunate. From their point of view, they're missing a couple of other French-based players as well, so they're a little less than full strength, which obviously hurts them too. But they do have some quality in there. I'm excited to see Spencer Jones from the Arrows coming in to make a debut at 12. He had missed much of this season through injury, but he's an exciting prospect. Hopefully he can come in and attack.
If he can help some of the distributing kind of things, if he can take some of that responsibility off poor Nelson, who they've been making do pretty much all of it, and he's a fine footballer. I'm very happy for Nelson finding a home for himself over there and doing a solid job for this team as best he can, but very often he's like the sole playmaker out there when they run out of ideas, and he's not good enough to get away with that.
No, indeed. So I mean, it's a hope that these boys sort of rise above themselves and just find a quick
when you want to see with the
game.
Crowd going with them, you want to see a bit of bite and a bit of grit out in Newfoundland. You want to see them kind of welcome the US to the trenches and try and be there physically from the very off. And then you could see an old classic of a humdinger of a scrap if Canada arrived to the pitch.
That's right. They need to be, as far as just their method for winning this game, Canada, looking at them as the home side, they do need to be the side that's more clinical. I would say more than anything, they need to be quicker than America, and they need to be more clinical, and we've seen nuggets of that. A bit like at a tier 2 level, kind of like a bit like Wales. When Wales were at sea for the whole year of 2020, they were so awful, and yet like in moments when they blitzed England after the second half with that one try, Canada clearly they run decent support lines when they break a line. They can all pass, they're pretty quick. They can take a try, and they
can take a try in a single phase, which
arguably the most important team, because when you come across a tier 2 team that really can't take a try, it is a painful thing, and they're not that. As much as they've had so many issues, just floundering on defense, floundering at times on offense,
some of their scrums,
all of their physicality, a lot. Sometimes their attitude, their shape, everything can go pear-shaped. They have been one of the more terrible teams to watch in recent times. The fact that they have that ability to grab a try means that if they can hone themselves and put themselves together for one big show, they do have the potential to knock a sluggish America.
They've also shown a stoicism over the summer that I remember I cited as well. Like, it was in the same week as USA were facing Ireland, and that went very badly for USA. Canada were facing England in Twickenham, and they willfully, insistently kicked to the corner every time in the first half, even though they were outmatched and they were never going to win the game, and they managed to get they were repelled like 3 or 4 times, but they did get 2 good first half tries and got 14 points on the board in Twickenham. Very, very impressive for a team of the calibre of Canada up against a team like England. They have no dreams of winning that game in Twickenham, and yet they were rewarded for their gung-ho kind of willfulness to go to the corner and try to go for scores. They ended up scoring 14, and the USA, by contrast, did kick an early 3 against Ireland, but ultimately got in for a late consolation to make it 10. And it was like, as much as we were looking at it thinking the USA are probably a better team, and we're saying they're coming into this contest certainly as favourites, and their own showing in Twickenham the previous week where they
was much more encouraging.
Much more encouraging, but it's just that kind of attitude from Canada is what you want to see. A kind of let's go for it. We're at home. We're going to take charge of this. Let's try and punish this US team and try and make them be the sloppy ones.
Make them be the ones who are a little sluggish and a little slower to score than we are, and get on top of them that way. They have to attack with speed. They have to make the Americans uncomfortable. They have to test that US midfield, which is all sort of jinked about again with Bracky back in at 13. They need to go after them. They need to start linking up and go wide and really get on. Trust change the game for the Americans.
Trust your guy at 12 and Nelson to get them wide. Guys like Webster and Coates and guys in the back three really need to be picking aggressive lines if they're going to try and have any purchase. It's going to come from
the Toronto Arrows, who have 12 players in this squad, are a team that mould themselves on speed and width. And while they can be soft at times, they can also pull off great wins by just finding tries and moving the ball wide, and that is very much the Canadian model. They will also need, obviously, to disrupt the Americans a little bit at line-out time. It remains to be seen if they can do that. The likes of Connor Keys and Corey Thomas, who they have in the locks this time, who I think has played back row for them before, but getting up into the line-out and disrupting and stealing ball, that's the kind of stuff that they're going to have to do.
Yeah, so much like it's not a mismatch here. It's not a tier 1, tier 2 scenario. No. This is for all the marbles in terms of World Cup qualification. Yeah, they should be confident of their ability to mix it, but they also need to be recognise the fact that it is such a huge weapon for the Americans, that set piece, and try to disrupt it. You're at home, you got to try and make it not clean. You certainly can't be an accommodating opponent at home.
No, and they've been all too accommodating in many of their matches in recent times. So yes, offense, be sharp, move the ball well, disrupt things at set piece, and then on defense, where they've been so poor recently, they just need to make it tougher. The US at the moment, they do not have a great multi-phase offense.
No, they don't.
They're not doing much off it. They're struggling a little bit if they're repelled. De Haas can be got at. Like
passing is not
they can be caught
accurate.
slow. They probably won't get outside you if you defend competently. If you get out of the line, make your tackles.
Falling off of tackles is an endemic problem in this Canadian side more recently, and also just discipline on that defensive side, just like either jumping offside or like riding up high, which they've done a few times as well, like really sloppy technical errors.
Sharp technical tackling should be enough to shut down the US and then turn it into a game where you're more clinical than they are.
That's the mould for Canada, all right. It's there's definitely a chance of it. It needs a fair few things to go right for them, but obviously the main one is don't put your head down when things don't go right, because both teams are going to have their moments. What would be disappointing, because there has been a brittleness to Canada of late, just in general. Like if the US, despite all of this tactical talk, if they do manage to capitalise on a penalty, go down the corner, score a 5-metre try, take a lead, you don't want to snowball that by losing the head and losing the composure, which has been a tendency in patches. Like there have been 10-minute patches of play where they've just been wogus on defence, on discipline, on everything. It's gone. Everything's game's up in smoke, and then they'll finally the dust will settle when they're completely dead, and then maybe they'll find a nice try at that point. But like that can't be the way this story goes. They need to have a bit more grit in their home ground, and I think maybe the St. John's factor will give them just that. I would hope to see a little steeliness from this Canadian team, enough to make this a very good game. Yeah, I agree. I definitely have some points of optimism for them. From the USA's point of view, obviously they had a tough end to the summer tour, getting pumped by Ireland. Yes,
but overall they will be confident. You know, they were a poor matchup for Ireland. They were how they like to play the game,
especially with their week. Like the one they will mine confidence most from is the final quarter in Twickenham. Like when have you ever seen a tier 2 side put at that kind of second half display against a tier 1 side? It just doesn't happen.
No, indeed.
Normally they're getting blitzkrieg by that point. If they're in it at all, it's normally the first 20 minutes, not the last. So that was very impressive from a fitness, from a will, from a coaching point of view.
They shouldn't have issues with fitness. They've played this whole season.
They can also rationalise that Ireland defeat as like we got stuff off from 5 out in Twickenham the week before we went to Dublin, and like you have guys like Paul O'Connell coaching Ireland, like they just licked their lips at a team deciding to turn down threes and kick the corner. It doesn't matter if it's USA or the Springboks, they'll still be like,
take it as an insult.
You're going to do that. We're going to try and defend very, very gamely. So like they just tactically matched up badly in that instance, because it was just going into the Lions' Den with the plan to try and outlion them.
I guess. That's 100% true. I think they won't panic as a result of that.
No.
But they have made some interesting adjustments. I'm definitely excited to see the Carty-McGee axis in flow.
Yeah.
Are they going to try and be a little more expansive with their play? That's a question.
But
I think Daragh needs to shape up.
They probably have more
speed
on the wings than they have done in years gone by. That's an encouraging sign. Just more speed in the backline in general. More kicking acumen, as you were highlighting. Perhaps 50-22s are a great.
Yeah, they're such a set piece team. Like working in a 50-22 off multi-phase with those two distributors. If they have the techers to pull it off, which I know Luke Carty does have in him.
He does, yeah.
If he can find him in a bit of space, a bit deep behind the line, and the Canadians aren't coming up in his face, and he has time to place the ball.
Yeah,
that could absolutely be in for them.
We're putting together loads of good attacking kicks in the course of their season, including many from his boots. So yeah, there's scope for them to kind of marshal this very well if they do calmly kind of deal with what assert some dominance physically. It'll be guys like Cam Dolan in the tight, if they can just rampage through a few contacts and then give front football to those kind of distributing forces out wide, then you have options to play with. What we were talking about in the macro is you'd love to see this US side kind of build on what they have, which is a physicality that, unlike most tier 2 teams, it's a physicality that can mix it at times with tier 1 levels of physicality.
Yeah.
But it's not the be all end all. Like, they're not physical enough to outmatch them there.
No.
They need to be able to take more tries than they are. They need to be a slightly quicker team than certainly the team that arrived at the Rugby World Cup in Japan, which was just physical enough and had some set piece chops, but was just way too slow and not clinical enough. And that was what you were saying.
Less clinical perhaps even than the Georgians these days. Like they aren't moving the ball as well as them, and that's definitely an area they need to work on. Daragh needs to sharpen up. The passes need to be better. It needs to clear rucks better, and they need to be able to generate some kind of tempo and offense. Because as we were saying with Canada, there is a chance for them to have their pants pulled down if they can do all kinds of industrious positivity for a 6-point lead. And then end up possible. End up 7-6 down, and then maybe end up 12-6 down, and then kick your way back to 12-9, and all of a sudden you're up against it as the last quarter arrives and you haven't scored a try. Now they do have the weapon. If they can exert themselves physically and get penalties, and they turn down the threes and go to the corner and use their 5-meter drive, that's one avenue for winning. But definitely, I do think this is a game where it's win at all costs kind of job. This is about the World Cup qualification. But if they could work in some expanse and some added elements to their game,
it's a necessary recipe, not just for like the 20-year picture of them becoming much better and a more relevant force, but also for the more real picture of like, it's more likely that they win this game more comfortably if they can move the ball quickly.
100%.
And then beyond that, they're going to face Uruguay if they do win this, and it's that's, you need to be competent with ball in hand if you're going to take those guys on, because right now I think Uruguay are slight favourites regardless of who comes out of this contest, and I think USA are favourites I think to come out of this contest after the 2 legs are in the dust settled. But on the macro, the US will need to move that ball a little bit better, and that's why it's encouraging to see this experiment of having 2 10s on the pitch, 1 at 15. It feels like and having a guy in from the 7 circuit to come in on the wing as well. Like it feels like they're noticing the lack
they got
speed
good tape on attacking rugby from the MLR.
Exactly, if the MLR is going to bleed in, like you were saying, the Toronto Arrows influence in Canada, like the MLR has shown this season what attacking rugby and verve and tempo can do to a structured kind of slow labouring team. And those are good lessons for the USA to learn. It's only the 3rd season of the MLR, but these are good lessons to kind of drive into these guys, and hopefully see
exactly. And they probably have a bit more quality than Canada in terms of just digging it out. Like you'd expect guys like Cam Dolan to just get on top of their opposite numbers, win like, contacts.
Even if Taufatae does come on at hooker, pretend like there's more impact on their bench too. McGinty coming out.
I knew who's from Toulouse,
awesome,
very decent stock to be able to bring in as well. So they have a bit more on the bench. They have a bit more in the starting team. And for that reason I would make them comfortable favourites. I would predict, as far as predictions are concerned, I'd predict a US win, but I'd say it'll be tight enough in this one. I'd say they'll probably win again in Denver next week. I'd say this week I would say a 1-score win for the US that's comfortable enough that they do see it home, like a 22-16 kind of job.
Right. I'll take the slide over. I'd say like 8 to 10 points.
Okay,
you're just a 2-score game.
You're just so
I have no faith in Canada at the moment. I'm hoping I'm being proven wrong, and I was so delighted to give them some credit for grabbing those 2 tries in Twickenham, even though it was
nuggets of positivity.
But I was really down on them in the World Cup because they were really annoying me.
They were.
And they haven't really kicked on since then. So
no, it's definitely
still vexed by them. I'm worried for them in the long term, because you were at the top of this segment, we were talking about their illustrious history, and they have dominated this rivalry historically, but at the moment I think it's the Eagles who are on the up more so than Canada. Canada are on the petering out.
They're on course for this to be their first World Cup, not in it. Yeah,
that is where they're on course. They need to be watching out for Chile.
Yeah, in fact, they could be not in it before the repechage. That's true. 100%. But yes, that's that game. If you have any thoughts or opinions on what might happen, be sure to let us know down below in the comments. But we're going to move on.
Thank you very much for watching that video. If you're new here, please do like and subscribe and ring the bell so you get notified when we upload again. But mainly, please drop a comment down below. We enjoy hearing your thoughts on it. Thanks.